Thank you for joining us this evening. Regular scheduled council meeting of the Park City City Council on April 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Dana, would you call the roll?
John Lynn here.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcedo.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Brandy Bailey. Here. Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mayor Mann, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, Emil Berquist is going to lead in the invocation, and George Glover is going to lead in the pledge. If everybody please stand.
Please bow. Dear Lord, thank you for the rain. Thank you for the sunshine. Thank you for the challenges. Lord, thank you for putting us in the battle and helping us have wisdom to do the things that needed to good resolve. Lord, bless this council and this mayor as they do work about the business of the city. Bless the staff as they carry out those orders. And thank you for safety. And we know there's places all over this country and all over this world that are struggling. And we just pray for them as well. And we thank you that we have the blessing of this liberty we share in this country. Ask for your wisdom and guidance for these guys in this meeting. In Jesus' name.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Ben?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
George?
I'll second it.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. We don't have anything for awards or presentations this evening, and nobody signed up to speak at public forum, so we'll move on to the staff reports, and we're going to hear from our finance director, Dee.
Good evening. Back in October last year, I provided you a financial update of the 2020 mostly revenues up to that point in the year. I thought you might like to hear how we ended 2020 and also what we're doing so far on those same types of items to date this year. It's pretty early in the year, so keep in mind a lot of the funds we received in 2021 were actually collected by other entities in 2020 when vaccines were just rolling out. And as you know, things are opening up more in 2021, so I think it's reasonable to expect increases in our collections as we move through this year. Sales tax, I'm happy to report. We ended 2020 with sales tax collections of $1,503,000 compared to $1,432,000 in 2019. That's an increase of $71,000. The city's April 2021 year-to-date sales tax collections are $509,000, which is approximately $15,600 more than the same time frame last year. There's a 2-month lag from when businesses collect the sales tax until it gets to us from the state. So if you keep that in mind, a lot of that is related to last year. Tax distributions. These are the county distributions. And for purposes of this item, I am excluding the gas tax from it. It comes in the county tax distribution, but it's a little different type of tax, and I'll report on it separately in a minute. So in general terms, what I'm talking about would be the property taxes, the motor vehicle taxes, special assessments, and payments in lieu of. In 2019, the tax distributions from the county totaled $5,618,000 as compared to $5,992,000 in 2020, an increase of $374,000. We also exceeded our budgeted amount of $111,000. So COVID really didn't seem to hurt us much in this particular area. The increase from 2019 to 2020 appears to be mainly attributable to the increase in the city's assessed valuation. And then for 2021, as of the March tax distribution, March 20th, we've collected $3,076,000, which is $1,200 more than the same time frame last year. The city's only received two of the 6 tax distributions. January is the biggest, June is the second largest, and the other 4 are relatively small in comparison. Franchise fees. Our 2020 collections were $689,000 compared to $704,000 in 2019, so down a little. The March 2021 year-to-date collections are $177,000 compared to $180,000 through the end of March last year. Gas tax. The 2020 collections were $290,793. On the positive side, that was $793,000 or $793 more than we budgeted, but it was down approximately $15,000 from the amount collected in 2019. In 2021, we've only received 1 county distribution and 2 state distributions to date, and those 3 payments in total are down $8,750 from the same 3 payments last year. Interest income, I think you know this one's going to be bad news from our discussion last year. In 2019, the city received interest income totaling $246,000. In 2020, we only received $35,500. If you recall, last October I reported to you that our KMIP rate dropped from 1.25% at the beginning of 2021 to 0.001% by the end of March after COVID hit. It increased to 0.003% in July, 0.007% in October, and 0.01%, 10 in there now, in mid-December. Then in mid-March of this year, it dropped down to 0.005%, where it currently remains. The $13.7 million in our KMIP account is currently earning $1.88 a day. The current interest rate on our Emprise account is 0.08%, that's 10, and I was keeping more funds there until recently they informed us that they weren't willing to pledge collateral on our deposits in excess of $5 million, so I had to move the excess amount to KMIP. In 2021, we've earned only $1,127, with 75% of that being on the Emprise account. And when you think about the fact that we have anywhere from 12 to 14 million in KMAP throughout a year and 5 million or less in Emprise, that's interesting that 75% of it's coming from Emprise. We earn more interest in the first 3 days of 2020 than we've earned in the first 3 months of 2021. Transit guest tax. In 2019, the city received transit guest tax revenue of $259,200, and in 2020, it dropped down to $217,100. Our software goes back to 2011, and the 2020 collections were lower than any of the previous 9 years. The first quarter distribution this year was $55,300, which is approximately $15,000 less than the first quarter last year. That's obviously a big drop. However, this particular revenue stream is fairly difficult to know by comparing individual quarters within years because there is a lot of fluctuation within the quarters. With some of the large events in the area being scheduled again this year, I'm thinking these collections will likely start to improve, but I'm pretty doubtful that they're going to return to normal for quite some time. Liquor tax, as I reported to you in October, despite what was being said in the news about liquor sales being up, Park City's collections were down. Our 2020 collections were only $44,000 compared to $60,000 in 2019. For the first quarter of this year, we've received only $7,850 as compared to $13,500 in 2020. Liquor tax revenues are split equally amongst 3 funds: the general fund, the special alcohol parks and recreation fund, and the special alcohol police fund. So all 3 of these funds are down on their revenue due to that. A couple items on a little different note and a more positive note. The 2020 year-end transfer, if you all recall, we came to you and asked you to be able to make a year-end transfer at the end of 2020 when we were closing the books from the increase in the general fund unencumbered cash to the capital equipment fund in an amount not to exceed $500,000. At the point when we had most everything else posted, our unaudited general fund unencumbered cash was up $880,000 from 2019, so we were able to transfer the full $500,000 to the equipment reserve fund. So that will get us a good start on our 3 replacement programs that we're working on, the equipment, vehicles, and IT equipment. American Rescue Plan. You're likely all aware that the city will be receiving an allocation of these grant funds soon. Since Park City's population is under 50,000, ours will pass through the state, which adds a delay of up to 30 days from when direct recipients will receive theirs. The funds will be provided in 2 tranches, with the first one coming after the U.S. Treasury certifies the proceeds to each jurisdiction, and the second one a year later. Funding must be spent, not just committed, but actually spent by the end of 2024. $19.53 billion of the funds will be sent to cities with a population under 50,000, and the allocation to each of those entities will be based on population. The estimate, and it is still an estimate at this point, for Park City is a little over $1 million. Eligible uses of the funds include the following 4 areas. The first area is revenue replacement for government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to revenues collected in the most recent fiscal year prior to emergency. As I've just reported, we have several revenue streams that are down. The second area is COVID-19 expenditures or negative economic impacts of COVID-19, including assistance to small businesses, households, and hard-hit industries, and economic recovery. The third area is premium pay for essential workers. The fourth area is investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. That's the extent of my report, but I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Dee?
I don't.
Not seeing any. Thank you, Dee. Appreciate it. That was all we had under staff reports. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Jim?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Ben?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to new business, item 8, which is discuss and consider an ordinance with changing the zoning on the property located at 53rd Street North and east of Hydraulic Avenue for Pratt Industries. Doug?
Mayor and council, the good news is you've heard this and already made your decision and approved the change in zoning. This is before you this evening because staff failed to have an ordinance before you at that time for your adoption, which you have to do by roll call. And so that's what we have tonight, just cleaning it up and asking you to approve ordinance 1119-2021, which changes the zoning classifications of what is to be Pratt Industries development on hydraulic south of here to light industrial.
Ben?
Yeah, I'd go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 1119-2021, an ordinance changing the zoning district classification of certain lands located in the city of Park City, Kansas under the authority granted by the zoning regulations of the city as originally approved by ordinance number 922-2013.
Okay, Melvin?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Dana, would you call the roll?
John Lanhair.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Vince Alceida.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey. Aye. Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 8-0. Thank you, Dana. That brings us to item 9, which is discuss and consider the proposed change of zoning district classification from the R2 single-family residential district to the R3 multiple family residential district for property located north of 53rd Street North, approximately 1/2 mile east of Hydraulic Avenue. Sean?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Elizabeth Franklin, the property owner, as well as Bar LLC and their agent Garver LLC are requesting approval of a zone change from R to R3 multiple family district for the development of duplexes. The subject property is approximately 15 acres in size and is currently zoned R2 single family residential. The application area is surrounded by a mix of large lot residential uses to the east and to the south, agricultural uses to the west and northeast, Heights High School to the southeast, and warehousing and distribution uses to the north and west of the intersection. Approval of this application would create 31 lots and 2 reserves to be used for drainage purposes, utilities, landscaping, and recreation areas, among other typical uses. On April 12th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the zone change 6-0, subject to submission of a landscape and screening plan showing the landscaping of off-street parking areas and the screening of 53rd Street frontage. The plan shall be approved by the Planning Commission prior to obtaining any building permits. During the proceeding, 2 area property owners spoke in general opposition to the request, citing the property devaluation and concerns over proposed sanitary lift station to be located within Reserve A. Also, an associated final plat was approved by the Planning Commission during that meeting, and it too is on the agenda for tonight. In your packet, you'll have the 17 findings of fact from the Planning Commission, and staff recommends approval of the request subject to finalizing the platting within 1 year from the date of the final approval, and 2, for submission of the landscape and screening plan for approval by the Planning Commission prior to the issuance of any building permits.
Thank you, Sean. Does anybody have any questions for Sean? A recommendation from the council? Tom?
I have a question to approve this. We just need to make a motion for the ordinance.
That is correct.
Okay, I didn't know if the 17 factors needed to be approved or anything separate. Okay.
No, sir. The suggested motion is there.
Okay.
As you know, that you can either approve the zoning changes with the conditions as presented, deny it, or send it back.
Okay. Well, I would move that we approve ordinance 1120-2021, an ordinance changing the zoning district classification of certain land located in the city of Park City, Kansas, under the authority granted by the zoning regulations of the city as originally approved and by ordinance 922-2013.
Okay, John?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dana, would you call the roll?
Joan Lanier.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salceda.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye. And that ordinance passes 8-0. Thank you, Dana. That brings us to item 10, which is discuss and consider approval of Bar Estates Addition A, final plat for the property located north of 53rd Street North, approximately 1/2 mile east of Hydraulic. Sean?
Yes, sir. This is similar to the one we just discussed. The background information is identical. As far as staff recommends approval of the subject to the following conditions. A drainage plan shall be approved by the city per Article 5-101. The applicant shall provide title report prior to submitting the plat for signatures. The applicant shall provide financial guarantees to the city for all public improvements required as part of the development of the subject property prior to recording the plat. Any utility relocation required as part of the development of the subject property shall also be the responsibility of the landowner.
Ben?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion to approve the final plat as presented.
And Jim?
I second that.
Okay. Brandy, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment. So looking at the plat, when I look at the street names, I'm concerned about one of the street names in there. It's Echo Hills. And to me, Echo Hills, I feel like it's confusing. I understand the reasoning behind it being Echo Hills, but I feel it's confusing knowing that everybody sees Echo Hills as being on the west side of the highway. And now we have an Echo Hill Street on the east side. So I see that could be a little bit confusing to some people. So is there a way to change maybe a street name, or what would need to be done?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, I talked with the representative from Garver earlier today because you had raised that concern earlier. It's one of the things, Sedgwick County GIS, when a plat is being developed, they take a look at it and they come up with names. And if you draw an extended line from Echo Hills Drive here to the east and to the west, eventually it matches up to our Echo Hills Drive over by Arby's. And so that's why they went ahead and did that. In fact, that's the reason why the two names on the north-south street were originally something that if you lined up farther to the north, that's what those were. We made a specific request. The city does have the authority to change street names, as you know. And so the north-south streets there have been changed for future designation or dedication to former mayors of the community. And so, yes, if the council agrees with that, then we can make certain prior to finalizing the plat and recording it that that street name be changed to something that's more appropriate. Because I do agree, Echo Hills, it's nowhere near what we would all consider Echo Hills.
So if we prove this tonight,
It's an administrative change.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. I would ask for a motion for a recess for 5 minutes. Ben?
Yeah, I'd go ahead and make a motion to adjourn, or recess, I'm sorry, for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, second by John. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0, and it is 7:21. We are reconvening from our recess, and that brings us to item 12, which is discuss and consider the acceptance of the land bank funds and abatement of special assessments on lots sold by the land bank. Doug?
This is just a formality. You need to recognize that you've been, that these two amounts have been directed to be paid to the city, and that you accept them in the total amount of $509,662.59, and that they be deposited in the bond and interest fund, and that all existing specials against those properties be abated.
Thank you. John?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve to accept $509,662.59 from the Park City Land Bank to direct the city clerk to deposit proceeds to the bond and interest fund and to abate special assessments on the sold property.
Jim?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 13, which is discuss and consider economic incentive for Echo Hills. Mike?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to come before you to request economic development bonds for the Echo Hills project. I'm going to guess that you might have a couple questions. We've had economic development bonds for this project in the past, and in 2000, I think it was in August 23rd of 2016, and we started working on the project, but we didn't get it done at that time. And then the other question will be on some taxes that we need to get paid on Echo Hills. So I wanted to address those two questions, and then I'm going to assume you might have some more questions beyond that. The Echo Hills project, I really kind of feel like I'm a resident of Park City as much time as I spend up here. And it was actually real helpful in putting together the Amazon project that when I first was in contact with them, they were looking for a location, and Park City was one of the ones that was on the radar. But I did know the community real well, and I was able to, with the help of 3 other brokers, and put 4 properties together that weren't on the market, and I think we found them a really good location here in Park City. And with that thought, there's 3 important things to get an apartment project started. One is interest rates, and then the spread on those interest rates. And those interest rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury, and then the spread is the what the lender asks for above those interest rates. And there's also the rents that are in the market, and up here in Park City area, we don't have that many apartment complexes. There's one at 45th and Hydraulic, and then and actually one that's close by is up on 77th Street between Meridian and Broadway. And other than those, we don't really have any apartment complexes or any rents that we can use as comparables in the market. The closest we come is Chisholm Lake, which is on K96 between Woodlawn and Oliver. And that project is very, very similar to what we're planning on building at Echo Hills. And anyway, I just kind of wanted to back up a little bit and just talk about the environment up here in Park City. Obviously, as you guys know, is completely different than it was in 2016. And I mean, it's exciting up here. You got Amazon, the Love Box, Pratt Industries, the casino, and then that's just bringing other people up here to the market, and everybody's scrambling around. We need apartments and housing, retail. I think it's the most underserved retail area in the metropolitan area. And anyway, I actually tied this property up, back in 2007, and in 2008, we picked up Johnny Morris at the airport, or the Jabbar Airport, Nestor Wygant and I, and we drove him over to the site, and he was going to put a Bass Pro Shop up here in Park City. And he had tried to put one in Wichita, and it got anyway, for a variety of reasons, it didn't end up down there, and they ended up with Gander Mountain. And I think that had a little, he really wanted to put a Bass Pro up here in Park City. And at the end of 2008, you know what happened to the economy and everything slowed down. He worked with us, talked to us. We started working on zoning and plating, and then Cabela's went in over at K96 in Greenwich. And then he backed away. He ended up buying Cabela's. So we lost out on getting somebody like Bass Pro Shop up here. And then I started working on the, we actually didn't close on the land until 2010. We left the golf course open, started working on plating and zoning. 2013, started putting infrastructure, utilities and streets in, sold a lot to Arby's. We were working with Carmike, which was a theater group. And Carmike, and we had investors who were going to build a building for them, and Carmike was going to put a theater in. And Carmike got bought out by Regal Theaters. And Regal Theaters owns other theaters in the Wichita market, so they didn't want to come up here to Park City to compete with them, with their other theaters. 2014, I had an outlet mall. The Woodmont Company came and tied up the land, and were paying a significant amount of option money, and they did that for a year and a half. They got 3 of the 4 anchors that they needed before they pulled the trigger on their project. And then in 2017, they finally, they said we can't do it. And ironically, one of the things that was hurting the outlet malls is the Amazon and all the online sales that were taking place. And then as you can see in the Wichita area, you know, Town West and even across from the airport, Sears, you know, there's a hole in Town East. Retail has gone through a real struggle. We were real fortunate in 2018 to get Atwoods to relocate and build a bigger store. And then Quick Shop, I actually started working with them in 2011 when they were still owned by Dillon's. They got under contract in early 2019. We're going to close in the earliest they would have closed was in the fall of 19. Then they kept delaying it, and they put it to February of 2020, and then they delayed it a month, and then by the time it was time to close, the COVID deal happened, and they didn't close until we went into the fall. And then to back up just a little bit, 2016, we get economic development bonds for a project, and we're going through, it's a market rate project, but it's insured by HUD. So they've got regulations when they go in and insure, and it's a non-recourse construction permanent loan. And we're working with the second largest apartment lender in the country. It's Walker Dunlop. And they've got a lot of, they've got a process that you go through, and it usually takes about 11 months to get through that process. Now we're already through that process away, so I'm not coming to you saying it's going to take 11 months now. But what we had to do, so we get the commitment on the economic development bonds in August of 23. We get a letter that shows that we have the bonds in place in September. They put out for bid to do an appraisal, market study, and environmental study. I get all those underway and get them done. And then those studies have to be fresh. They can't be, they can't be a year old or 6 months. And so in January of 17, I get a call from the Historical Preservation Board up in Topeka, and they go, HUD's going through the process and checking all their boxes, and one of them was a historical society. And so when they checked, they go, well, across the street to the south, 20-some years ago, somebody found some Indian ruins or some arrowheads or a campsite, or I'm not sure exactly what it was, I can't remember. And so we had to have an archaeological study done. So this is January. Then we had to hire an archaeological firm, and so we get them hired in February, and they told me it was a 6-week process. Well, it was the end of May before they got done. Now we're at the end of May. I have to refresh my studies. So then then I got to come out of pocket again. We start working on refreshing our studies, and then as we go into the rest of the year, the interest rates start climbing on me, and as we went into 2018-19, interest rates were double what they were when I got a commitment to build these units. Doubling the interest rate, going up another 1.5 points, and then, and not only that, sometimes they increase the spread on those interest rates. So, and then one of the problems is the rents in the market were staying flat. My construction costs were going up. So you couldn't make any economic sense out of the project. So that's why I got delayed on that. And today, the interest rates, I mean, this week are back where they were in August of 2016 on the 10-year Treasury. And my construction costs are going up, but the difference in the market, now the rates on the project, the Chisholm Lake project, are still pretty flat. They're full, but they don't raise their rates. I gotta believe here in Park City, we can get the kind of rates we need to make this project work. Lost my train of thought there. Anyway, so we've got to have, and these rents that we're looking for are 2 years out into the future. So the interest rates are where they were. We're going to guess that we've got a different environment. That's where we were. We've got a different environment. I think we can get the kind of rents that we need to get. My construction costs are going up. The lumber price, and I'm sure most of you are aware of what's happening to lumber, and there's a lot of other commodities that are going up. So those are the things that I'm faced with. I got construction costs, rents, and the interest rates. Interest rates have come down. I got to believe we can get the rents back up, but my construction costs are going up. So that's, and because the rates have come down and stabilized, and obviously I couldn't do anything as we went through all the COVID deal. I mean, you couldn't go to the banks, you couldn't get the investors, you couldn't get all that. Now I'm in a position where with the excitement up here in Park City, that I can get the investors, I can get the lender. I got to work on the construction costs. I'm in hopes that the lumber prices are going to come down. That's the number one. Lumber prices are up 3 and 4 times, and I'm sure you guys are aware of that, gals. A couple other things I just want to say, you know, I've got files with at least 40 prospects for Echo Hills that I've worked with trying to get in here. There's an east-west bias in Wichita. People land east, they land west, and getting them to think and come up this direction has been hard in the past, but that's changing because of what's going on. There's a lot of excitement going on up here, so I expect I'm going to have some other people that are come up to Echo Hills. In the fall of 19, I was working with 4 different restaurants. I was trying to get closed with Quick Shop, and obviously we know what happened with COVID, but those restaurants are starting to talk to me again. I guess that's where I'm headed. 3 sit down, 1 fast food. Extending the road up there will help greatly. Downtown Wichita, there's a lot of apartment activity. That's the Opportunity Zone and the TIF districts. I've had a cost-benefit analysis done. I think you've got that. I think it fits for what we're trying to do up there. As far as getting these taxes caught up in November of 19, I had 1 year of taxes that were that I was trying to, and that's when I was working with 4 restaurants and trying to get Quick Shop closed. So that's how I was going to pay taxes. And I didn't have those closing, and then we went into the COVID, and it's hard to get anybody to come out of pocket. And I'm not trying to blame anybody, but there's a different environment. So I'm working on getting a loan from a bank or another bank, or getting some of these closings to happen to get the taxes caught up. And they would be caught up before we would break ground on a project.
Can I stop you for a little bit?
And I'm down to the bottom of my list.
I think we got the history. Sean, I want to change direction. Can you go through your staff summary report on what the request is? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. As we all know, Section 13 of Article 11 of the Kansas Constitution authorizes a governing body to grant tax exemptions for certain economic development purposes, otherwise known as EDX exemptions. Given that the applicant has made application for such property tax exemptions to construct a 192-unit apartment complex located in Echo Hills, The anticipated construction cost of the project is approximately $27 million. He has completed the required tax abatement cost benefit analysis that the city dictates, and based on 100% abatement, the projects a positive benefit to cost ratio of 1.69. Anything above 1.3 is good. The applicant is requesting 100% exemption, whereas our Resolution 870-2013 established Park City's incentive policy outlines the level or percentage of incentive exemptions based on two things primarily: capital investment, job creation, and then, oh, by the way, export sales. But in this particular case, export sales has nothing to do with it. Pursuant to that policy, the project does qualify for a 75% abatement for capital investment and 13% abatement for new job creation, for a total exemption of 88%. Assuming the appraised value is equal to the construction cost and based on the current mill levy rates, a 10-year projection of all taxing entities would be approximately $4.5 million. In addition, the project would also qualify for the sales tax exemption during construction, and that's approximately $1 million based on 50% of the construction cost being something that is sales taxable. As far as the fiscal impact currently, the proposed building site is currently appraised at $176,000. It has an assessed value of $21,120 with annual property taxes due of just over $3,000 and almost $22,000 in special assessments. And as he indicated on the back taxes, the current balance for this parcel alone is $89,143.
Thank you, Sean, I appreciate it.
That's for 10 years, not
That's for 10 years, yes.
just for 10 years.
Now, just kind of open it up if any of the council has questions, and we can kind of go from here between Mike and Sean. Brandy?
I guess the most concerning thing to me is the back taxes. I mean, you've been here several times before, and we've always kind of, helped you out, and we've done things with you, but I feel like we always get burned. With the back taxes, right now, it's almost $600,000 what you owe in back taxes. And you're here asking us for essentially a $6 million benefit over 10 years. One of the things you said is you weren't paying your taxes, and we're going on almost 3 years of back taxes, so we're getting close for them to being in tax foreclosure sale again. You said that you didn't pay your taxes because the 4 restaurants didn't come through, but you were a part of the Amazon project and you were part of Quick Shop project. And can you maybe explain why you didn't pay them when those projects happened? I mean, paying the taxes is concerning to me. The second thing I want to mention is that Park City and Bel Air are the only 2 locations in Sedgwick County that offer tax abatement on residential, on anything residential. There's one apartment complex in Bel Air and one apartment complex here in Park City. And the rest of Sedgwick County, nobody offers tax abatements on residential. So it's just, to me, I have some issues with that. So I don't know. Those are just some of my concerns.
Well, I mean, the Amazon deal, I was a real estate broker with 4 other people, and Amazon came in, and right before the closing, they came in and gave a haircut to me on 50% on commission, but that was just a commission. It really wasn't that much for the work that I actually put into it. And there was a firm out of Dallas I had to work with, and there were 2 other people that came in at the last moment on a couple of the other properties. So that there wasn't much there for that. When we closed on Atwoods, I was current with all the taxes. We paid all the taxes. We were current. And then 1 year later would have been the fall of 2019. And so we had the one year taxes that needed to be paid. And Quick Shop was under contract to close in the fall, and then they extended 3 times on their contract, and by putting up some funds, and they extended all the way into the beginning of the next year. And so anyway, I was hoping to use that, and then, but also I had the 4 restaurants I was talking to. So, and then we run into COVID. So we're just coming out of COVID to where I can go to a bank and talk to investors and get them to come up with the funds. But you can make that a contingency on this, but over the next few months, I plan on getting those taxes. And I've got letters of intent coming on some of the properties, and I've got another restaurant from another broker coming on the property. So I've got, it's either going to come from the closings on those properties or come from a bank here in the not too distant future. And so today, currently, as we're standing here, there's 2 years. The 1 year I had, and then the COVID year, and then we're coming out of the COVID, and so now I'm going to try to take care of those taxes. And then as far as incentives for apartments, most of the apartments you see are built end up in I'm trying to build apartments like over on K96, and those are pretty nice. Those are not a 221D4, subsidized. It's going to be a nice market rate project, not over the top nice, but it'll be a nice market rate project. And a lot of the apartments you're seeing in Wichita right now are in opportunity zones, and also part of TIF districts. They've got an Old Town TIF district, and then they've got a downtown TIF district, and that's where all this activity on apartments is taking place. Or they're in an area where they've got high incomes, where they can get the kind of rents that they need to build new apartments, or they've got subsidized housing that they're building, and they're getting subsidized financing and tax credits to build there. So.
Well, like I said,
I don't know if that answers all your questions.
Well, what gives me the biggest pause is the taxes. I mean, what you're just telling us now, it's essentially kind of what you had told us back when Atwoods was happening, and you paid those taxes, but then as soon as you paid those taxes, now they're all delinquent again.
Well, okay. I can back up, and I came forward knowing that those taxes were due because I know there's a need for apartments up here. These apartments don't work unless I get the tax break. Now, I can wait and then wait until I have a closing, or I get the bank or whoever and get the taxes paid and then come back and talk to you. I mean, I can do that. But that'll delay me being able to build the apartments. But the bottom line is, these apartments don't work unless we've got the tax breaks. And so it's, I can come back after I take care of the taxes, or we can get started and then just make it part of the deal that I've got those taxes taken care of, which I'm sure I will have them taken care of before we get going on this project, because it's going to take me 8 or 9 months to get through all the financing requirements, because we've got to redo all these studies and make all these applications, and then we got to get the plans drawn, finalized, and all the bids done. So I did come forward knowing that those taxes were out there, but I'm trying to get this project started. In the past, I've had the interest rate so high, I didn't even have a chance to get the project started.
So you're saying that
it's not an easy deal putting one of these deals together. It's a big project.
So at this point where you're at this point now, you're going to have to go redo all these studies again?
Yeah, well, I have to update them. They have to all be updated.
Which could take essentially another 11 months.
Well, no, not the studies. The studies will only take, probably take 4 to 6 weeks to get them all redone. But then you got to put them into a package with your drawings and who your investors are and who your group and where your funds are coming from. And then you got to put that in, and then it's a 3-step process with HUD, and it's how fast can you get them to go. HUD insures it. It's not a. They're insuring the loan, but you got to go through their process to do it. And then when you get to the there's a pre-app stage, and then there's a final app. And the final app is where you pull the trigger on the drawings, and you got to have all your drawings done, everything done, and then you start construction a day after you close the loan. And so
from where we're at right now, what's your just a rough guess timeline?
8 or 9 months to get a shovel in the ground.
Okay.
All right. Ben?
Yeah, so I love the idea and the concept here. I think it's a great concept. It's a great need here in Park City. And I appreciate your vision for that. That being said, we're on year, in the case of the apartments, year 4 of the same song and dance. I understand there's been differences that have happened, or changes that have happened to the economy. We've seen the economy pick up during those times, which sparked the interest rate increase, but also things were going well across the board there. And then we saw what happened after COVID hit there. Now, things were still being built like crazy during 2020. Investors were still pouring into different businesses across the county, across the city, across our state. For instance, Amazon or Pratt Industries. So I don't necessarily buy the 2020 was a down year and couldn't work through some of this because it was being done elsewhere. Like I said, I like the idea. Honestly, my thought is that there's investors out there that could probably get this going pretty quickly, that have the backup and have the proven track record to get it done. You have a great asset, obviously, owning the property. But I think there's others that could probably carry this project through. Just knowing that we live in a great city, great county, and a lot of good possibilities there. I'm not here to tell you about how to run your business on that part, but that's just my thought. To the taxes portion of it, yeah, we're $550,000 in the rears on this right now. That's as of April 21st. And each month, because of the delinquency, you're growing at $1,000 a month of delinquent taxes. So we're headed to a pretty serious amount. And again, by state statute, next year, the treasurer has the opportunity to foreclose on that if it's not done by that time. So we're running into some serious issues with just the ability and the feasibility of this. Councilmember Bailey mentioned earlier in 17 or in 18, we paid off the taxes and got everything current. And here we are again, 3 years later in the same thing. I understand there's been instances with Quick Shop and how you described that process. I understand as a broker in a real estate deal, you're not making bank off of that there in terms as you would if you owned the property and were selling it. I get that there. But even making attempts to make payments on this would have slowed down the rate. Anytime you're over, by state statute in the state of Kansas, anytime you're over $10,000 in delinquency, your interest rate is just killing you. And there's not been any attempts to make payment. And so now to come back to us and say, hey, can we abate taxes moving forward? For the past 3 years, though I understand out of that 500-some thousand, lots of its interest, that 44 meals that we'd be entitled to could have helped us out too as well. And so to me, that shows a lack of concern to our city as well, because we could have been benefiting from that money in various ways. I understand we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have come to Park City, but that's still money that should have been in our coffers there to help take care of roads, our employees and such like that. So I have a problem with that there as well. And then finally, to that point, and my mind just slipped here on it, so I might have to come back to that point here in just a second.
Jim? Okay. Bigger picture question. What did we approve last time? The 88% abatement or the 100% abatement?
100%.
Sorry?
We did 100%.
Okay. And of the parcels that have, something for us all to think about, of the parcels that have been developed, so Arby's, Quick Shop, Atwoods, I suspect the taxes are all current.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So holding up a project and keeping it in a development status is leading to past due taxes, which you're all validly concerned about. Developing it resolves past due taxes. Just got to think about both sides of this, and I kind of wanted that out there. That's all I have to say.
Tom?
Well, I was going to ask the same thing about the last time that we had done this. And I understand there's things that have gone on in the last couple of years that delayed this. And I remember him coming back to us and talking about some additional studies that he had to have done. We keep talking about the abatement. There's other deals that happen too. If you have population, then the basis of allocations of funds to the city grow with the potential of population. And so there's a backside of taxes that you can get through state allocations and county allocations, like sales tax, grants and things like that that would offset some of the cost benefit of tax abatement. I'm wondering where we would be at and how the council would feel about extending another year, and if he's not done in a year, then we go somewhere else and say sell the property or something. Or 6 months, I don't know.
What do you mean extending another year?
Well, not extending, but allowing another 6 months or something to make something happen, and if it doesn't, then we move on down the road.
Okay.
I mean, if we grant this tonight and nothing happens, then we haven't lost anything. But if we don't do it, then there's an opportunity for this to go somewhere else, so. And the benefit of the population growth and the housing within the city to not be available.
Okay. Ben?
Sure. I remember what I was going to say, but I'm going to hold it because it has, along with that. The other parcels though that have been already developed, those are held by those individuals, those companies or brokers or whoever it is, Atwoods, Arby's, Quick Shop, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so who would be the owner of this parcel as developed?
It would be a new entity called Echo Hills Apartments LLC.
But it wouldn't,
And it would be, we've got additional investors to bring into that project. Additional investors that are required by Walker Dunlap and HUD. And it's not just me, it's some people that are strong that'll be involved with the project.
okay, I appreciate that part there. Just to that part, I will say this, I am not in favor of 100% abatement on this. As far as the comment that this project would go elsewhere, I understand that. I think based upon the comments tonight, being that it's only us and Bel Air that offered this type of an incentive, I don't think this project would go elsewhere because there would be no abatements available anyplace else other than Park City or Bel Air. I get the change in population there, the growth in population, that's true as far as our sales tax and such that we receive. I do believe, and I think going back to it, I believe that there is, as has been presented, there is a need for this here. And I think though that there is a market and those out there that would be interested in doing this and it would be a benefit to you as well in the sense of if I sell a piece of land, I'm going to receive the benefit of that. And I understand that there's the business side as well. And I don't want to try to tell you how to run it. I think the need is there, the market is there, but I have a hard time putting our eggs in the basket when we're 12 years down the road on this.
John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like we've been down this road a couple times. I feel like the last time we did this, we did say, this is it. If you go back and look at the meeting that we had then on YouTube, we did say it then. Understanding that the economy is not completely forecastable by Mr. Loveland or us, but that's the business he's in. And I just feel like the optics of us waiving taxes for someone that is not paying the taxes already is bad optics for the public. And for that, I'm definitely against 100%. But I would be hard pressed to support this.
I'm glad you brought that up because I remember the last time we had that discussion, we said if we had to come back and do this, it would not be 100%. That we talked about if we looked at it again, we would knock that back. I struggle with this too, but I also see what Jen is talking about. There is a huge benefit. We know there's a market for that here in the community. But when we do home buyers incentives and we work with builders, they only get to participate in the incentive if they're behind on their taxes. And not on the taxes on that lot, it's on their taxes within the city. And if their development is behind, they don't get to participate in the home buyers incentive. There's a different scale, but there's also a different payback there. There's also a different rate of return. Now, Sean's figured that back out as, kind of where we're back at, as far as the rate of return on that. It's something that we do have to look at and consider, but 100%, there's no way I'd back that. And I highly doubt I'd even back 88%. I think it needs to be cut even further. That's where I'm at. George?
Yeah, I remember back when you came back before us before, we waived it and waived it and waived it in hopes that you would get those back taxes paid, and now you're back again. I like the approach, I like the apartments, I see a need here in Park City, but for me, it's about those back taxes. It always comes back to my mind about getting those paid up. And I'm not so sure, Mike, you can get those paid up and before, maybe possibly down the road, coming back to us and say, yes, I've paid those and this is where things stand. But for me, the big thing is the back taxes.
I could have waited. I've got deals I'm working on that I know are coming. And if that's what we need to do, then I can wait and come back. I'm just trying to get this thing going as fast as I could, and I knew that was going to be an issue. So, but I wanted to try to explain it. You know, I've kind of been out in front of the market. You know, you can't force this development, but I went up there and try to get it going. But if that's, I'm trying to get this project going as fast as I can.
I
I've
understand.
got deals out there.
I understand.
That, you know, when I get them all signed up, then it's easier to go and get the taxes paid, even from the banks. But, so, if that's what I need to do, and the project doesn't work without the tax abatement. So, I'm trying to make the thing work, and so.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but as far as what my concerns are, it's always been the back taxes, because like I said,
And I did get them paid, you know.
had them paid to a
2000
certain point, to a certain year, and now we're still behind. So you're coming back before us and you want another abatement and you want 100% or 88%, whatever it is, when in fact you're still behind. For me, if I was behind on my taxes on my house, it would come up for foreclosure. So I want to make sure those things are paid.
Okay.
If this is property that you have and you're back due on it, get those things paid up. I don't care about how you do it, just get it paid up for me. And
COVID
This
didn't help
is
me,
an
so.
irritating subject because it's something the state allows to happen. They allow this 4-year game, and then developers play it. They always go 3 years out, right when it's getting ready to come up for closure, they pay that 1 year, so they're staying 3 years behind, so they keep their cash flow. It's frustrating because rest of the hardworking citizens in town aren't doing that. And we could benefit from that, and we wouldn't have to look at raising mill levies and different things like that impact the citizens of the community because other people aren't paying their taxes and they're playing games. That's what's frustrating. We look over this, we approved this before, nothing happened. I'm not even sure there's a guarantee this happens again if we look at it. And I think we look bad if we stand here and we back this project again for something that you're already talking is 8-9 months out. John?
I think we've had a good discussion and back and forth with Mr. Loveland. I'd make a motion, we take no action on item 13.
Ben?
I would second that, and just for a real quick discussion on there, I will state that even with the taxes paid current, if that's the process that you take, I still will not be in favor of 100% abatement. I want that out there. I would be open to 88 at that point, but I would not be willing to go to 100.
Okay. George?
Which one?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, Mike, I met with you many, many years ago in the back chambers there at the old city building. And, you know, you talk some big stuff, and you've got me excited several times, and then I've been let down. You know, as far as 100% of tax abatement, there is no way I would vote for that. You know, I'd be hard pressed to go any higher than 50% tax abatement on that, because you put all those people together down there, and when you put people together, it's like putting traffic on a highway. They're gonna get together sooner or later. And you know, our police department's stretched thin as it is. And you build a big apartment complex, You're gonna have problems down there. All you gotta do is watch the morning news, to see which homicide or fight, big deal occurred at what apartment complex in Wichita. And there's a big cost to the police of policing these things. And there's just no way I'd go for 100% abatement on it. I just wouldn't. That's all I got.
Thanks, George. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. Thanks, Mike.
When the taxes are paid, should I come back?
I think it's worth your time to
Okay.
come back,
I-
yes.
I was trying to make this thing go faster, and I took that risk, but so, thank you for your time.
Hey, Mike, when you come back in 8 months, can you bring your investor or whoever, maybe the money man?
I don't think it's gonna be 8 months.
Or
I think
whatever.
it's gonna be faster than that.
Well, can you
And,
bring somebody else that does the money part of your business, or are you the money man of it?
Well, Dave Wells, Key Construction, is one of the investors in the project, and,
Well, I'd be kind of interested in hearing from him or whoever, or him or her, whatever, so,
and I tried to get him to come, and he was unavailable, so.
okay.
Well, I think what Melvin's saying is a good point is, this is a team effort on your part you're trying to put together, and it would be good that if you came back, you brought the team with you. Because to me, if somebody says they can't come, what's the enthusiasm of the team if they can't be here to make a request?
It was on kind of short notice, so,
Gotcha.
but, okay.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Thanks.
That brings us to item 14, which is discuss and consider a resolution for the sale and conveyance of certain properties to FMI. Doug?
Council, this is another resolution that authorizes the conveyance of property that's been titled to us during the outstanding time that industrial revenue bonds have existed for FMI, Inc. FMI wishes to pay off those bonds, and when they do that, under the terms of the trust agreement between the issuer, us, and the tenant, FMI, the city is obligated to convey the property back to them. So that's what this resolution 1068 2021 does. It recognizes that upon the payment of the bonds, the 2016 B and A industrial revenue bonds issued to FMI, Inc., that the city is authorizing the mayor and clerk to convey the property back to FMI.
Thank you, Doug. Jim?
I understand, so I would move to approve Resolution 1068-2021, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Park City, Kansas, authorizing the sale and conveyance of certain property to FMI.
John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dana, would you call the roll?
John Lanier.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Vince Salcedo.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that resolution passes 8-0. Thank you, Dana. That brings us to item 15, which is discuss and consider approval of purchasing pumps and control panel in support of the 53rd Street lift station. Sean?
Yes, sir. In February, council approved a contract with Wilson and Company to design, bid, and provide construction-related services for the new lift station along 53rd Street. As we all know, the timing of this project is crucial as the development of Pratt Industries Park Addition has already begun, and the new lift station needs to be operational by the middle of September of this year. Due to the urgency, Wilson and Company has already solicited competitive bids from 3 companies for the required pumps and the control panels, as those customarily have the longest lead time. And the 3 bids are included in the package. The first one is from Fluid Equipment for an amount of $49,491.98. They have a 1 to 2 week long lead time on their pumps and 6 to 8 weeks on their control panels. JCI, otherwise known as Flight, they have the 10 to 12 week lead time for both their pumps and their controls, and their cost was $67,625. And then finally, Haynes Equipment, the bid was $65,570, and they have a 3 to 4 week lead time on both pumps and controls. Staff recommends approval and authorizing the mayor to finalize the purchase of the pumps and the controls from Fluid Company for an amount not to exceed $49,491.98 to be paid from the Capital Projects Fund.
Ben?
Yeah, I didn't have any questions on this, so I'd go ahead and make a motion to approve, authorize the mayor to finalize the purchase of pumps and controls from Fluid Company for an amount not to exceed $49,491.98 to be paid from the Capital Projects Fund.
John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 16, which is discuss and consider approval of the master service agreement with Terracon Consultants in support of the 53rd Street lift station.
This is the companion item to the one that you just approved. What this is for is considering a master service agreement with Terracon. Again, due to the urgency, Wilson & Company has solicited a proposal from Terracon to provide the subsurface exploration, laboratory testing, and a geotechnical report of the site. The final report will identify the types of soils that are present, the water level depths, as well as make recommendations on the design structure itself of the lift station. The total cost of the proposal is $3,350. Staff recommends approval.
George?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute agreement with Terracon Consultants for an amount not to exceed $3,350 to be paid from the Capital Projects Fund.
Brandy?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 17, which is discuss and consider approving the addition of a full-time detective position in the police department. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, council members, been a lot of talk this evening about development and population and growth in the city and so forth. The police department currently has one detective, one investigator, and this position is covered by our corporals that rotate through that position every few months. The rotation has been very beneficial for several reasons. The corporals have received training in investigations, which has helped them to be better first responders at crime scenes when they return to the streets. It's also increased their leadership ability, and they've been able to substitute as investigators when the corporal assigned to the investigator position is on leave or otherwise unavailable. We have no backup for the investigator at present other than our other corporals that have rotated through that position. We need to create a full-time detective position in order to in addition to the rotating position. The current caseload is too large to be effectively handled by one person, and I really cannot emphasize that too much. It takes a long period of time, experience, and training for a person to become highly competent as an investigator, and our corporals don't serve in this position long enough to fully hone the necessary skills. A full-time detective would also be better able to monitor the corporals and mentor them as they rotate through that position. Police department's also experiencing an increasing workload of cases that require an investigator to follow up. I have some updated numbers, a little bit more current than what's in your packet. So from January of this year through today, April 27, Park City police officers responded to more than 1,144 calls for service. So I didn't have an updated number on the calls for service, but of that number, 589 calls resulted in creating a case, which means that an officer actually created an official police report of one kind or another. Of those 589 cases this year, 136 cases have required additional investigation by an investigator. There's also a backlog of cases that is built up that are awaiting investigation by a detective. We have 63 cases right now that need to be presented to the juvenile DA's office for charging. The investigator normally brings a handful of those to one appointment. 87 cases need to be presented to the adult district attorney for charging. 44 cases need to be presented to the city prosecutor, and 9 other cases are pending, waiting for lab results to come back. Based on the current trend that we see just from the beginning of this year, we'll have well over 500 cases that need to be followed up on by a detective in one fashion or another. And many of those cases will need to be presented to the district attorney's office for charging. And as I mentioned, those appointments are made weeks in advance right now. The addition of several large businesses and housing developments in our city will continue to draw more people to Park City this year. Unfortunately, this also will result in an increase in crime and the need for police services. We're already seeing this increase in cases. I respectfully request the council's permission to add 1 full-time detective position immediately to deal with our current caseload and the expected increase in criminal cases in the future. Be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Chief, I got a couple questions for you. One, first off, I think this is a need that has to be filled. Sometimes we don't look at people that are victims in the cases, but when the case law gets back up, if you're a victim of something and somebody's not reaching out to you or being in contact with you, you kind of feel like it doesn't matter, nobody's concerned about what may or may not have happened. So I do see this as a need. My question is, we've seen the benefit of rotating corporals through, which I think has been a good thing for training and just keeping it fresh for changing up what their day-to-day grind is. And so I see that. Would you see this full-time position also being rotated out maybe at a lengthier time, like 24 months, or do you think this is something if somebody was in there and enjoyed it, this is kind of where they'd camp out?
I really think long-term we need someone who's going to make this a career move.
Okay.
As I mentioned before, the amount of training that's required in just police work in general, but as an investigator in particular, it's becoming more and more technical all the time, and keeping up with the case law and so forth that's involved. It's a huge learning curve. I mean, it's very difficult for someone to step into that position. We really need someone who can be to carry the heavy load and be a mentor.
Okay. George.
Yeah, Chief, I do see a need for that detective position. Overall, in years past, do you see an increase in case calls as compared to this year with the number of businesses that are now here? Have you seen that?
Yes, as I mentioned, I think we're already seeing this wave begin. We've seen that since the end of the beginning of this year. Somewhere around the beginning of this year, we really saw things begin to tick up. Some numbers were down last year because of COVID. Some actually went up, but we're seeing an increase in traffic here 24 hours a day with the businesses that we have, some of them that have come in, and we've got more on the horizon, and we're playing catch up already.
Okay. I see that also this is an unbudgeted position. How would this position be paid for?
I have to leave that to Sean or Dee for their expertise.
Majority of that's going to come from positions that have not been filled.
Exactly, and as you remember last year during the budget cycle, we went ahead and budgeted everything just in case. And actually, we also have tax-led money that had been identified for the police department, that there's 1.3 currently in that, to where we can go ahead and pull from that as well.
Okay, thank you.
George Capps.
It sounds to me like you need more than one. Listen to your stats. Yeah, I supervised investigations for that department for 11 years. And I'll tell you something, if you've got a person working patrol and part-time investigation and stuff, you don't do good service to either one. You need someone full-time who lives that. Believe me, when you work a serious crime if you've got a homicide or an armed robbery or something, and you work it, you've got to live that case. And you can't do it if the next day you got to go work patrol. You can't do it. So I would move move that we approve this position.
Was that a motion?
That's a motion, yes.
All right. Ben, did you want to second that?
Second.
Okay. John, did you have any comments?
I was gonna do the same. I appreciate the backing information the chief submitted, but I would agree. I think being on the cusp of the growth like we're seeing right now, you're gonna see a lot more people going to restaurants and stores here, and there are gonna be financial crimes. There's gonna be a lot of other identity theft stuff with casino, and you see apartments go in. I mean, it's not just apartments. I mean, there's services that the city has to provide. So I would say I definitely support this. I can remember 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, there was 2 detectives.
Yeah, we have
So-
2 full-time.
I think we just got really shorthanded and said we need people on the road, and then now that's short too, and we're having to backfill that. So I'm very supportive of this.
Tom?
I agree, and I was going to make a comment that we used to have 2 detectives, and they went away. Staffing's an issue with me. You're having trouble getting officers, and now we're going to grab one and take him and put him somewhere else, so, or her, I don't know which. I agree with John, and I do know that out in the public, you can file a case and you don't know when it's going to come up. People don't know, they don't feel like it's being followed up because of resources. I mean, it's timely getting back to them, and with having a detective that can keep up on this stuff, it would be a good positive thing with the public.
I think we've been pretty aggressive on the recruitment process. I think we have a pretty sweet video that's out right now. Hopefully everybody's been able to check that out. So hopefully we'll just start seeing some good applications coming in. And I think even we should start considering maybe even relocations. There could be officers from other states that may want to move, and we should talk about moving costs and what we might pitch in to get the right officer here. Brandy?
So there's been discussion about maybe having another position besides this one. Since it's budget season, can we go ahead and maybe budget for another one? So that way, if we get to that point next year, it's already there?
I would say the chief runs the department, and while he can give us numbers, it's not our mission to put positions on him. He may feel that there's a different need somewhere else, and that's why we got the chief in the position that he is in. When he feels he has those needs, I think you understand you have the support of us, and that we would definitely listen to your request. George?
Well, looking at the current climate and everything, I think one of the most important things we need to do in recruitment is show the officers in the department that they have our support. You see it on the news every day where politicians, city officials, state officials, they're turning on their police officers and then wonder why you can't recruit. You know, we need to be very strong with the support of our department. The officers need to know that we have their back. I think it's very important.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, that was the last item on the agenda this evening. So we'll move on to comments, and we'll start with Jim.
I just have to mention it, because tonight was a pretty good commercial for the downfalls of the federal government stepping in and trying to provide financing on local projects. I would suspect that a local lender would have had this done a long time ago. If you think back through the whole unwinding of that, it started with delays caused by programs from people that have no feet on the ground. So it was an interesting discussion tonight, but there's my commercials. Sometimes you get what you pay for with those lower rates that the government's rolling out in our market.
Brandy?
I have nothing.
George?
Well, I agree with Jim. You look at you look at, when the government builds something and does something, look how long it takes and the red tape. And when private industry does it, bam, they get it done. They get it done.
That's true. Tom?
I made my comment tonight during one of the discussion items to spurn or discussion, and it worked. So I'm not in favor of 100% abatements on something like that either, so. And I agree with the council on the back taxes, so want to get some discussion going, trying to keep that complex potentially working, so that's all I got.
Okay. Melvin?
I don't have anything.
Ben?
Nothing.
George?
Yeah, in lieu of everything that's going on, our Park City Fishing Derby is on track, June the 19th from 9 to 11 at Chisholm Point Pond on North Grove. There's been a lot of folks pre-fishing that. A lot of big channel cat have been caught. They just stocked it, I believe, on April the 15th, so come out and fish it. Again, it's free. It's open to everyone. And also, a side note to that, the LEAP program has been extended, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program through Department of Children and Families. You can go to that website. If anybody, you know, in lieu of some of our high gas and electric costs that we've had recently, you can go on there and apply. This is for gas and/or electric bills that you receive, and that's been extended to May 28th. Thank you.
John?
I was gonna ask Sean about pickleball courts. Have they talked anything about start dates or begin
Yeah,
construction?
you
on them?
missed the last meeting when we talked about
Yeah, I did, I'm sorry. Had a pressing family issue.
Yes, sir, we talked about that the last time, that due to just the availability of asphalt companies out there, that right now we've been told end of June, first part of July.
Be done?
That's when they're expected to start. So
Okay.
we're working it as fast as we can, sir.
I got you. So the other thing I was gonna say, I wanted to mention like, tax abatements and IRBs and stuff that we do, especially for apartment complexes. I mean, what Brandy said tonight was a big thing. And there's a reason that, most towns don't do them. And it's because, I mean, when we waive that, it also waives fire department. I mean, all the funding for the city, the police services we provide, snow removal, I mean, everything we do, fire department, and also schools. I mean, when we abate taxes, it takes money out of the school district, and you think about 180, I think it was 190 residents there. If there's a kid in half of them, there's 80 kids in schools that aren't paying taxes on their property. So just think of that every time, man. It's a budget night. So that's all I have. I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0.